Deho stared at the massive holographic map floating in the center of the council chamber. Stars glittered in blues, greens, and reds. Trade routes appeared as golden threads connecting hundreds of worlds. But one section remained completely gray. No stars, no labels, just empty space taking up nearly a quarter of the entire map. He had been a cartographer for 3 years now, updating maps and logging new discoveries for the Vryn Collective. His people breathed methane and lived in cold worlds that most species found uncomfortable. But here in Vel Prime, orbiting a neutron star, everyone used environment suits. The annual summit brought together 17 different species to share information about the galaxy. Deho adjusted his breathing apparatus and checked his notes one more time. Today he would present updates about 3 new star systems his people had surveyed. Routine work. Nothing special. But his eyes kept drifting to that gray zone on the map. Ambassador Talver floated nearby, her crystalline body refracting light into rainbow patterns. She had lived for 5,000 years and served on the council for most of that time. Deho had tried asking her about the gray zone once before. She had simply said it was restricted space and changed the subject. The presentation began smoothly. Deho displayed data about mineral deposits and habitable zones. Other cartographers nodded approvingly. Then he made a mistake. While switching to his final slide, his hand slipped on the control panel. The map zoomed in on the gray zone. For just a moment, labels appeared. Human space, quarantine zone, no entry. Then the hologram flickered and went dark. The chamber fell silent. 12 different species exchanged glances. Ambassador Talver stood abruptly. Her voice resonated through the room like bells ringing. She declared an immediate recess. Everyone filed out quickly, avoiding eye contact with Deho. In the corridor outside, Deho found himself alone except for one person. Hunbi stood near a viewing port, watching stars drift past. She worked as a data analyst for the Gen hegemony, monitoring trade patterns and economic flows across the galaxy. She turned to him with dark eyes that seemed to calculate everything. Her species looked almost human, though her skin had a faint blue tint and she stood 7 feet tall. "That was interesting," she said quietly. "I have been tracking ships near that region for 2 years. Want to know what I found?" Deho nodded. Hunbi pulled out a datapad and showed him charts and graphs. Ships approaching the gray zone's borders either turned back immediately or simply disappeared from tracking systems. No warnings, no distress calls, just silence. 17 ships in 2 years, Yunbi said. All vanished within 1 light year of the border. I reported it to my superiors. They told me to stop investigating and delete my files. Did you? Delete them? No, stop investigating. Also no, she smiled slightly. I think you and I should visit the archives together. The council archives occupied 3 entire levels beneath the main chamber. Thousands of years of records stored in crystal matrices and quantum storage. Most of it was public information, but some sections required special clearance. Yunbi had clearance for trade records. Deho had clearance for cartographic data. Together they could access more than either could alone. They spent hours searching through old files looking for anything about the gray zone. Most records simply listed it as restricted territory with no explanation. But deep in the historical section, Deho found something odd. A document dated 847 years ago. The file was heavily corrupted, with most text replaced by error symbols. But one section remained readable. It was labeled Quarantine Accords. Most of the text was missing, but a few lines stood out clearly. Warning, do not engage. Do not investigate. Do not remember. What does that mean? Deho whispered. Do not remember? Yunbi was reading something else on her datapad. Her face had gone pale. I found a list of previous cartographers who worked on galactic mapping projects. 17 of them asked questions about that region. All 17 were reassigned to remote research stations. None of them published any work after that. A shadow fell across their table. Ambassador Talver stood in the doorway, her crystalline form blocking the light. She looked at them both for a long moment before speaking. Come with me, she said. Both of you. They followed her to a private meeting room. The door sealed behind them with a soft hiss. Talver dimmed the lights and created a small hologram showing just the gray zone. You want to know why we do not discuss this region? She said. I will tell you what I am allowed to tell you. That space belongs to a species called humans. They made an agreement with the council 900 years ago. They stay in their territory. We stay out of it. No exceptions. Why? Deho asked. Because the alternative was unacceptable to both sides. Talver's voice carried a weight that made Deho's scales tingle. Some borders exist for everyone's protection. The humans agreed to stay in their corner of space. We agreed never to ask why. That makes no sense, Yunbi said. If they are dangerous, why allow them to exist at all? If they are not dangerous, why avoid them? Those are excellent questions, Talver said. Questions that 17 previous investigators also asked. Would you like to know where they are now? The threat hung in the air, but something in Talver's expression suggested it was not quite a threat, more like a warning from someone who cared. I can see you will not stop asking questions, the ambassador continued, so I will give you advice. If you must investigate, do it carefully, do not discuss it openly, and understand that what you learn may be something you wish you did not know. She moved toward the door, then paused. There is a research station called Theta 9, 3 sectors from the border. A scientist named Hyunwoo lives there. He used to be a cartographer like you, Deho. He asked the same questions you are asking. His research was confiscated and he was sent away. But scientists are clever about keeping copies of important data. With that, Talver left. The door hissed open and closed. Deho and Yunbi sat in silence, looking at each other. She just told us where to go, Yunbi said slowly. While warning us not to go, Deho added, Are you going? Deho thought about those 17 ships that vanished. He thought about the corrupted files and the cryptic warnings. He thought about the gray zone that everyone pretended not to see. Then he thought about what it meant to be a cartographer. His job was to map the unknown, to find answers, to make the galaxy a little less mysterious. Yes, he said. I am going, Yunbi nodded. Then I am going with you. They left the council chambers that night, booking passage on a transport heading toward the outer sectors. Neither noticed the small observation drone that followed them, recording everything, and neither saw Ambassador Talver watching from a window high above, her ancient eyes reflecting starlight as she whispered to herself, I hope you find what you are looking for, and I hope you survive finding it. Research Station Theta 9 looked like a broken toy floating in space. It orbited a brown dwarf that gave off barely any light. The station itself was old, maybe 200 years, with patches and repairs visible across its hull. Only 3 ships were docked there when Deho and Yunbi arrived. The transport captain had been nervous about bringing them here. This was the edge of explored space, far from major trade routes. Few people came to Theta 9 unless they had been assigned here, and nobody wanted to be assigned here. Inside the station, the air smelled stale and recycled too many times. The lights flickered occasionally. Deho counted only 12 other people in the main corridor, a skeleton crew maintaining equipment and monitoring deep space readings. This was where the council sent people it wanted to forget. They found Dr. Hyunwoo in Laboratory 7, which was really just a converted storage room. He was alone, staring at screens filled with data streams. When they entered, he did not look up. I wondered when someone would come, Hyunwoo said quietly. His voice sounded tired, like he had been waiting for years. They sent you to check if I still have the files, yes? No, Yunbi said. We came to ask you about them, about what you found. Hyunwoo finally turned around. He looked old, though his species aged slowly. His eyes held something darker than age. Fear, maybe, or the memory of fear. You want to know about human space, he said. It was not a question. You saw the gray zone on the maps. You asked questions. They warned you to stop, and you came here anyway, Deho nodded. Ambassador Talver told us about you. Something changed in Hyunwoo's expression. Talver sent you? Then she wants you to know. Interesting, she must think the time is coming. Time for what? Yunbi asked. Time for the truth to stop being a secret. Hyunwoo stood and walked to a locked cabinet. He pressed his hand against a scanner, then entered a long code. The door opened, revealing stacks of data storage crystals. When they confiscated my research, they thought they got everything. But I am a scientist. We always keep backups. He pulled out 3 crystals and inserted them into a reader. Images appeared on the screens. Star maps, ship schematics, battle reports, and lists of the dead. 900 years ago, Hyunwoo began, the Galactic Council sent a survey fleet to explore what we called the Orion Frontier. It was supposed to be routine. Map new systems, catalog resources, make first contact if we found anyone interesting. The fleet included 200 ships from 17 different species. The best we had. He pulled up an image of the fleet. Massive vessels, each one designed for long-term exploration. Daeho recognized some of the ship types. They were still used today, though these were older models. 3 months into the survey, they detected artificial signals, radio transmissions, primitive by our standards but clearly technological. They found a species that had just achieved faster-than-light travel. The humans. Hyunwoo showed them images of human ships from that time. They looked crude compared to galactic standards, bulky, inefficient, like children's toys next to the survey fleet. First contact went well, Hyunwoo continued. The humans were curious and friendly. They shared information about their homeworld and colonies. The survey fleet began standard integration protocols. They explained that human space would need to be cataloged and incorporated into galactic maps. Trade agreements would be established. Territory would be formally recognized by the Council. The humans politely declined. Yunbi frowned. They declined? Why would anyone refuse contact with the galactic community? That was exactly what the fleet commanders asked, Hyunwoo said. They insisted. Galactic law required all spacefaring species to register their territory. It was for everyone's safety, they said, to prevent conflicts, to establish proper channels for communication. The humans said they understood, but their answer was still no. They thanked the fleet for visiting and requested that they leave human territory within 24 hours. Daeho felt a chill run down his spine. He knew what was coming next. The Council dismissed the warning, Hyunwoo said. They sent enforcement vessels, military ships to make the humans understand they had no choice. 200 ships total with weapons and soldiers. They gave the humans one final chance to comply. The humans transmitted a single message in response. It said, "You have 72 hours to leave our space. This is your only warning." Hyunwoo pulled up more files. Combat logs. Sensor readings. Desperate transmissions from dying ships. The data painted a picture that seemed impossible. Within 72 hours, 197 ships were destroyed. 3 escaped. Those 3 only survived because the humans sent them a direct message. "You may leave. Do not return." That cannot be real, Yunbi said, but her voice shook. 200 military vessels against a species that just invented FTL? The numbers make no sense. I thought the same thing when I first read these reports, Hyunwoo said. So I studied the combat data. The humans used weapons we had never seen. Ships that could appear and disappear using some kind of localized space folding, kinetic weapons moving at near light speed, digital attacks that corrupted our ship computers, and soldiers wearing powered armor that let them fight in any environment. He showed them video footage from one of the surviving ships, grainy images of human soldiers boarding a galactic vessel. They moved with frightening coordination, working as a single unit. Their weapons cut through armor like it was paper. The crew never had a chance. One science officer managed to send a final analysis before his ship was destroyed, Hyunwoo said. He noted that human vessels operated on principles we did not understand. But what disturbed him most was not their technology. It was their tactics. They fought with the precision of machines and the brutality of apex predators, like they had been preparing for exactly this scenario. Daeho stared at the data, trying to process it. A species just 3 weeks past their first FTL test had defeated the combined military power of 17 established civilizations. It seemed like science fiction, except the evidence was right in front of him. After the battle, the humans offered terms. Hyunwoo continued. A treaty. They would remain within their self-defined borders. They would not expand into galactic space. In exchange, the Council would never enter human territory, never survey it, never even acknowledge it officially on public maps. There would be limited trade at neutral stations, but no diplomatic relations, no cultural exchanges, no integration. The Council agreed immediately, Yunbi said slowly, understanding now. Yes. They called it the Quarantine Accords. Made it sound like the humans were dangerous plague carriers we needed to contain. But really, we were the ones being quarantined. The humans gave us most of the galaxy to play in and asked only to be left alone. Hyunwoo pulled up one final file. It was a personal log from the fleet admiral who survived. The entry was dated 2 weeks after the battle. Daeho read it aloud. We encountered a species 3 weeks past first contact. 3 weeks. In that time, they went from testing their first FTL drive to defeating our entire fleet. This suggests they had been preparing for hostile first contact long before achieving space travel. The implications are terrifying. What kind of species assumes the universe is hostile before ever leaving their home system? The laboratory fell silent except for the hum of equipment. Daeho felt like the universe had shifted somehow. Everything he thought he knew about galactic civilization suddenly seemed fragile. "Why are you telling us this?" Yunbi asked. "You could be sent somewhere worse than Theta 9. Hyunwoo smiled sadly. "There is nowhere worse than Theta 9. And besides, Talver would not have sent you to me if she did not want you to know. The old ambassador is wise. She understands that secrets have a price. The longer we hide the truth, the more dangerous it becomes when it finally emerges." He copied the data files onto 2 new crystals and handed them to Daeho and Yunbi. "Take these. Study them. But be careful who you share them with. Not everyone on the council wants the truth revealed." As they left the laboratory, Daeho turned back one more time. "What do you think about the humans? After everything you learned?" Hyunwoo considered the question for a long moment. "I think they are the most dangerous species in the galaxy. And I think we are very, very lucky they prefer to be left alone." Crossroads 7 was nothing like the quiet emptiness of Theta 9. The neutral station buzzed with activity. Hundreds of species crowded the docking bays and market corridors. Traders shouted prices in dozens of languages. The smell of exotic foods mixed with fuel fumes and ozone from ship engines. The station sat exactly on the border of human space. One side faced the known galaxy. The other side pointed into the gray zone. Ships came and went constantly, but Daeho noticed something strange. Nobody talked about what lay beyond the border. Even the traders who dealt in human goods never mentioned where those products came from. Daeho and Yunbi spent 3 days observing before making any moves. They watched human traders arrive, conduct business, and leave. The humans always came alone or in pairs, never groups. They were polite but distant, finishing transactions quickly and efficiently before returning to their ships. What struck Daeho most was how ordinary they looked. Humans were bipedal like many species. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. No scales or fur. No unusual features except their varied skin tones and hair colors. They could have been any of 24 species in the galaxy. Yet everyone avoided them. On the 4th day, they approached a human trader. Her name was Gina, and she ran a small stall selling tools and medical equipment. She looked young, maybe 30 by human standards, with dark hair pulled back in a practical style. Her stall was neat and organized, every item labeled clearly. "Can I help you?" Gina asked in perfect galactic standard. Her smile seemed genuine but did not quite reach her eyes. "We would like to learn about human products," Daeho said carefully. "Your technology is very advanced. Thank you. These are diagnostic scanners. They can detect over 500 different medical conditions in most carbon-based species. Would you like a demonstration?" Yunbi shook her head. "Actually, we were hoping to ask about human space itself. What is it like?" Gina's smile faded slightly. "I am just a trader. I do not really talk about politics or territory." "We are not politicians either," Daeho said. "I am a cartographer. She is a data analyst. We just want to understand why human territory is not shown on our maps." Something changed in Gina's expression. Recognition, maybe. Or resignation. "You should speak with Merchant Prince Cordan. He has more experience with these questions. His ship is docked in Bay 17. She wrote something on a small card and handed it to Daeho. An access code. Then she turned back to her stall, clearly ending the conversation. Bay 17 housed a massive cargo vessel decorated with Vryn family symbols. Daeho recognized them immediately. Cordan belonged to one of the oldest merchant families in the collective, wealthy, influential, and known for trading in rare goods. The merchant prince himself greeted them at his ship's entrance. He was old. His scales faded to pale gray, but his eyes remained sharp. He looked at the card Gina had given them and nodded. "So she sent you to me. That means she trusts you are sincere. Come inside. We should not discuss these matters in public." His private quarters were filled with artifacts from across the galaxy. Art, weapons, scientific instruments. But one wall held only human items. Books, paintings, small pieces of technology. A collection representing centuries of human culture. Cordan poured drinks for all 3 of them and settled into a comfortable chair. "I have been trading with humans for 40 years. I am one of perhaps 20 non-humans who have actually visited human space and returned. So ask your questions. Why do they hide?" Yunbi asked bluntly. The humans could join the galactic community. Share knowledge. Expand their influence. Why choose isolation? Cordan sipped his drink thoughtfully. They do not hide. They simply maintain distance. There is a difference, and they do it because they learned something important during first contact. What did they learn? Deho asked. They learned how fragile we are, how easily frightened. When the survey fleet came 900 years ago, humans had barely left their home system. They had 12 colony worlds and maybe 300 ships total, but they had spent their entire history preparing for conflict. War was normal to them. Competition, survival of the strongest. Cordan activated a holographic display showing images from human history. Battles, weapons, soldiers marching. Humans evolved as hunters, predators. They competed with each other for resources for thousands of years before achieving space travel. Every human nation on their home world had armies, weapons, war colleges teaching strategy and tactics. Most species only fight when necessary, he continued. Humans studied war as an art form. They wrote books about it, created games simulating it. They prepared for conflicts that might never happen just to be ready if they did. Yunbi stared at the images. That is insane. Why spend so much effort on violence? Because for humans, peace is not the natural state. Peace is something they have to work for, maintain, defend. When the survey fleet arrived, humans assumed we might be hostile, so they responded with overwhelming force, not because they wanted to fight, but because they wanted to ensure they would win if fighting became necessary. Cordan pulled up more data. After the conflict, humans analyzed what had happened. They realized the galaxy was not like them. Most species were cooperative, peaceful, unused to real war. The sight of human military tactics terrified everyone, so humans made a choice. They would stay separate to avoid changing galactic culture through their presence. I have seen their worlds, Cordan said quietly. Hundreds of colonies now, thriving cities, beautiful art and music. They have built a remarkable civilization, but underneath it all they remain ready. Every civilian ship can be converted to military use. Every colony has defense systems. They maintain that readiness not because they want war, but because they cannot imagine not being prepared. Deho felt something shift in his understanding. The border is not a prison. It is a gift, exactly, Cordan said. Humans chose to withdraw not because they lost, but because they won too easily. They saw how the galaxy reacted and decided integration would be harmful to everyone. Better to maintain peaceful distance and limited contact. What about the traitors? Unbi asked. Like Jinnah, why allow any contact at all? Because complete isolation breeds ignorance and fear. Humans understand this, so they allow limited trade and cultural exchange. Just enough to maintain relations. Not enough to overwhelm us with their presence. Cordan stood and walked to his collection of human artifacts. He picked up a book, its cover worn from age. This is human poetry from 500 years ago. It speaks of longing for connection while accepting necessary solitude. Humans are not happy about the separation, but they believe it is the right choice. He handed the book to Deho. Take this, study it. If you want to understand humans, you must understand that they are capable of great violence and great compassion. Often at the same time, they chose isolation as an act of mercy, not fear. Later, back in their quarters, Deho and Yunbi tried to process everything they had learned. The data from Hyunwoo showed humans as dangerous warriors, but Cordan's words painted them as thoughtful neighbors choosing restraint. Both things are true, Yunbi said finally. That is what makes them so unsettling. They are exactly as dangerous as everyone fears, but they choose not to be. Deho opened the poetry book Cordan had given him. The words were translated into Galactic Standard, but something of the original meaning came through. Poems about home, about belonging, about the price of being different. One poem stood out. It described a powerful creature choosing to live alone rather than frighten others with its presence. The final line read, "True strength lies not in what you can do, but in what you choose not to do. We need to return to Vel Prime," Deho said. The council needs to hear this. Yunbi nodded. Though I am not sure they will listen. They have spent 900 years pretending humans do not exist. Acknowledging them now means admitting the lie. Then we make them acknowledge it, Deho said with more confidence than he felt. The truth deserves to be known. The council chamber felt different when Deho and Yunbi returned. The usual crowd of junior officials and observers had been cleared out. Only the 17 species representatives remained. along with a handful of the oldest counselors. The doors sealed with a heavy sound that seemed final. Ambassador Talver stood at the center, her crystalline form casting rainbow patterns across the walls. Next to her stood Elder Namgil, a being so old that his species had evolved noticeably since his birth 3,000 years ago. And at the military station sat High Admiral Sukja, commander of the Galactic Defense Fleet. Deho had expected anger, punishment for investigating classified information. Instead, he found only tired resignation on the faces around him. "You have learned the truth about human space," Talver said. It was not a question. "Dr. Hyunwoo shared his files with you. Merchant Prince Cordan told you his observations. You have seen evidence of the old conflict and heard theories about human nature." "Yes," Deho said simply. "Then it is time you learned everything," Elder Namgil said. His voice sounded like wind through ancient trees. "The complete history, not the sanitized version we tell junior officers, not the simplified explanation we give to merchants. The real truth about what happened 900 years ago, and why we fear it still." The holographic display activated, showing the survey fleet as it had looked all those centuries ago. 200 magnificent ships representing the peak of galactic achievement. "The conflict lasted 72 hours, Namgil began. "But what happened in those hours changed everything we thought we knew about warfare. You have seen the casualty numbers. 197 ships destroyed. 3 escaped. What you have not seen is how it happened." The display showed sensor logs from the battle. Human ships appeared and disappeared using technology that seemed to bend space itself. Weapons struck from impossible angles. Digital attacks corrupted AI systems, turning automated defenses against their own crews. "We assumed the humans had help," High Admiral Sukja said, speaking for the first time. Her voice was hard, shaped by years of military command. "We thought they had found ancient technology, or made contact with another advanced species. The alternative was impossible." "What alternative?" Hyunbi asked. "That they developed it all themselves, in 3 weeks. Starting from their first FTL test." Sukja pulled up technical analysis. Every weapon they used was improvised from civilian technology. Their space-folding drives were modified colony ship engines. Their kinetic bombardment weapons were asteroid mining equipment repurposed for war. They did not have advanced military technology. They just understood how to weaponize everything they had. Deho stared at the data. It showed human engineers working around the clock, converting peaceful tools into instruments of war. Not because they were violent by nature, but because they were prepared for that possibility. "Human psychology is fundamentally different from most species," Namgil explained. "Most of us evolved as prey animals or cooperative species. We developed intelligence to avoid conflict, to work together, to find peaceful solutions. Humans evolved as pack hunters, persistence predators. They developed intelligence to coordinate attacks, to plan ambushes, to outwit dangerous prey. For most species, war is an aberration," Talver added. "Something that happens when normal society breaks down. For humans, war is just another tool. They study it, practice it, prepare for it constantly. Not because they love violence, but because they cannot imagine not being ready for it." The display shifted to show intercepted human communications during the battle. Deho expected to hear screaming, panic, fear. Instead, he heard calm voices coordinating attacks, soldiers joking with each other between firefights, commanders treating the entire conflict like a complex puzzle to be solved. One message stood out, a human officer saying to another, "Finally, something interesting," like they had been bored before the battle began. "That is what terrified us most," Namgil said quietly. "Not their weapons, not their tactics, but their attitude. They were not frightened by first contact with hostile aliens. They were excited, like this was what they had been waiting for. After the battle, we analyzed everything," Sukja continued. "Human ships, human weapons, human bodies recovered from destroyed vessels. What we found was disturbing. Every human colony ship had been designed with military conversion in mind. Every civilian station included weapon mounts. Every human wore some form of personal armor, even in peaceful situations. They were not preparing for war with us specifically," she said. "They were preparing for war with anyone, or everyone. It is how they think. Hope for peace but prepare for war. Trust but verify. Speak softly but carry big weapons." Yunbi shook her head slowly. "This makes no sense." If they are so dangerous, why make peace at all? Why not finish what they started? Because humans are not monsters, Talver said firmly. That is the part many counselors refuse to understand. Yes, they are incredibly dangerous. Yes, they are always ready for conflict. But they are also capable of remarkable compassion and wisdom. Namgil activated another display. This one showed diplomatic communications after the battle. Human negotiators offering terms that were surprisingly generous. They could have demanded tribute, territory, submission. Instead, they asked only to be left alone. The humans analyzed our response to the conflict, Namgil explained. They saw how terrified we were, how our entire understanding of the galaxy had shattered. They realized that integrating into galactic society would fundamentally change it, and not for the better. They understood that their presence would create an arms race, Sukja added. Every species would start militarizing to match human capabilities. The galaxy would transform from a cooperative community into a group of competing powers. Humans knew this because they had lived through exactly that scenario on their own world. So they offered a treaty. Talver said, the quarantine accords. But it was not really a quarantine. It was an agreement. Humans would maintain their borders voluntarily. We would respect those borders absolutely. Limited trade would continue. But no diplomatic integration, no cultural exchange programs, no military alliances. And we agreed, Deho said slowly, understanding now. Not because we defeated them, not because we contained them, but because they let us. Exactly, Namgil said. The treaty is not our protection against humans. It is human protection for us. They maintain the border not because we force them to, but because they choose to, and that choice is the only thing standing between the galaxy and fundamental change. Sukja pulled up current military intelligence. We monitor the border constantly. Human military capabilities have grown enormously in 900 years. They now have thousands of ships, weapons that make their old technology look primitive, defense systems that could probably hold off the entire galactic fleet if we tried to invade. But they never threaten us, she continued. Never show aggression. Never even hint at expansion. They maintain their side of the border perfectly. All we have to do is maintain ours, so why hide it? Yunbi asked. Why keep it secret? Why pretend human space does not exist? Because fear is contagious, Talver said. If the general population knew the truth, panic would spread. Some would want to attack humans preemptively. Others would advocate for isolation. Political movements would form around human-related fears. The entire galactic community would destabilize. Better to maintain the comfortable lie, Namgil added, that the gray zone on our maps is just empty space, uninteresting. Nothing to worry about. Most people never even notice it, and those who do ask questions are quietly redirected. Until now, Deho said. The council members exchanged glances. Finally, Talver spoke. Until now, you have learned the truth. You have evidence. You could reveal everything to the public. Cause exactly the panic we have worked centuries to prevent. But you will not, she continued, because you understand now. The humans are our neighbors. Dangerous neighbors, yes. But they are also our guarantee. Any threat that reaches our borders must first pass through human space. And nothing passes through human space uninvited. Deho thought about everything he had learned. The battle reports, the trader's perspective, the human poetry about choosing restraint. It all painted a picture of a species that was simultaneously the most dangerous and most trustworthy neighbor anyone could ask for. What happens now? He asked. Now you make a choice, Namgil said. You can continue as a junior cartographer, keeping this knowledge to yourself. Or you can join a very small, very secret group of people who work to maintain the border agreement, who ensure that human isolation remains stable, who prepare for the day when the galaxy might be ready to accept the truth. Deho looked at Yunbi. She nodded slightly. They had come too far to turn back now. We choose to help, Deho said. Whatever that means. Talver's crystalline form seemed to glow a bit brighter. Good. Then your real education begins tomorrow. Welcome to the Border Services Division, where we maintain the most important boundary in the galaxy, the line between what is and what could be. 1 year had passed since Deho joined the Border Services Division. He now held the title Senior Cartographer, though his real job had little to do with making maps. Instead, he monitored the boundary between human space and the rest of the galaxy, watching for violations, coordinating with human liaisons, ensuring that the delicate peace remained stable. The work was strange. Most of the time, nothing happened. Traders came and went from Crossroads 7. Human goods flowed into galactic markets. Everyone maintained the polite fiction that the gray zone on the maps meant nothing important. But occasionally, someone would try to cross the border. A curious explorer, an ambitious merchant, sometimes just lost ships taking wrong turns. When that happened, Daeho would contact the human liaison officer. Usually the ships would be warned away by automated systems. Sometimes human patrol vessels would escort them back to neutral space. Nobody ever got hurt? The humans were polite but absolutely firm about maintaining their borders. The human liaison officer was Captain Yoon Seo. She visited Crossroads 7 once a month to coordinate border activities and ensure no misunderstandings occurred. She was professional, friendly, and always maintained clear boundaries. Daeho had learned a lot from her about how humans viewed the galaxy and their place in it. Today, Yoon Seo arrived with an unexpected proposal. They met in a private meeting room on the station, away from curious eyes and listening devices. "My superiors have approved something unusual," she said without preamble. "We would like to invite you into human space, an official visit. The first non-human cartographer to see our territory in 900 years. Daeho felt his heart race. This was unprecedented, unheard of, possibly dangerous. "Why me?" "Because you have proven yourself trustworthy. You learned the truth about the old conflict but chose to help maintain the peace rather than spread panic. You understand why the border exists. We think it is time someone from the galactic community saw what human space really looks like." "What does the council say about this?" Ambassador Talver approved it personally. "She thinks the time for complete secrecy is ending, not because we should reveal everything to the public, but because key people like you need to understand humans as more than just a threat or a mystery." 3 days later, Daeho found himself aboard a human transport ship crossing the border. Yoon Seo accompanied him, along with a small security team that was there more for protocol than actual protection. The journey would take 5 days, visiting 3 human colonies. The first thing that surprised Daeho was how normal everything looked. Human ships were efficient and functional, but not particularly militaristic. The crew wore uniforms but laughed and joked like any other spacers. The interior was clean and comfortable, designed for long voyages. "You expected weapons everywhere," Yoon Seo said, reading his expression. "Military drills and soldiers marching. That is not how we live. The capacity for war exists, but it is background, like having fire extinguishers on a ship. You hope you never need them, but you keep them ready." Their first stop was a colony world called New Harbor. The planet had been terraformed over 3 centuries, its atmosphere carefully adjusted to support Earth-style life. From orbit, it looked beautiful. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds swirling in familiar patterns. On the surface, Daeho saw cities that could have belonged to any advanced species. Tall buildings, parks filled with strange earth plants, transportation systems moving people efficiently. Children playing games that looked different but served the same purpose as games everywhere. "This is what we wanted you to see," Yoon Seo said as they walked through a public square. "Human civilization is not just military bases and weapon factories. We have art, music, literature. We study science for the sake of knowledge. We explore space because we find it beautiful and mysterious." But Daeho also noticed things that confirmed his understanding of human nature. The architectural design included reinforced structures that could serve as shelters. The transportation hubs had blast doors that could seal in emergencies. Every building had backup power and life support systems. The infrastructure was designed to keep functioning even under attack. "You see it," Yoon Seo said. "The dual nature of everything we build. Yes, this city is beautiful and peaceful, but it is also a fortress that could defend itself if necessary. We cannot separate those 2 aspects of our thinking. Every human settlement is both a home and a potential stronghold." They visited a university next where human scientists studied everything from quantum physics to xenobiology. Daeho met researchers who were genuinely excited about their work, who cared deeply about understanding the universe. But he also noticed that much of their research had potential military applications, not because they intended it for war, but because that is how human minds worked. Every discovery was evaluated for both peaceful and defensive uses. On the 3rd day, they visited a military installation. This time, Daeho saw the full extent of human defensive capabilities. Ships that made the old survey fleet look primitive, weapons that could probably destroy planets if necessary. Soldiers training with an intensity and skill that was genuinely frightening. But what struck him most was not the weapons or the tactics. It was the professionalism. Human soldiers were not aggressive or violent. They were calm, disciplined, focused. They treated warfare as a serious profession that demanded respect and constant training, like doctors preparing for emergencies they hoped would never come. "You maintain all this," Deho said, watching a training exercise. "This massive military force. But you never use it." "We use it every day," Yunseo replied, "by not needing to use it. The purpose of a strong defense is not to fight wars. It is to prevent them. We learned that lesson the hard way on Earth. Nations that were too weak invited aggression. Nations that were too strong became aggressors themselves. The balance point is being strong enough that nobody wants to fight you, but wise enough not to start fights yourself." On their last evening, Yunseo took Deho to a quiet observation deck overlooking the colony's main city. The lights below created a beautiful pattern against the darkness. In the distance, one of the colony's 3 moons was rising. "You asked me once why we maintain the border," Yunseo said. "Why we choose isolation when we could join the galactic community. I want to give you an honest answer." She was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. Humans spent 10,000 years learning how to survive on a dangerous planet. We evolved to see threats everywhere because threats were everywhere. Predators, hostile tribes, natural disasters. Our entire psychology is built around preparation and competition. When we achieved space travel, we brought that psychology with us. We expected the universe to be hostile because that is all we had ever known. When the survey fleet arrived and demanded we submit to galactic authority, we responded exactly as our instincts told us to, with overwhelming force. After the conflict, we analyzed what happened. We realized that most galactic species are not like us. You evolved in different environments, developed different instincts. Your default assumption is cooperation and peace. Ours is competition and preparation for conflict. We saw how terrified everyone was of us, and we understood that if we integrated into galactic society, we would change it fundamentally. Other species would start thinking like us, militarizing, competing. The entire galaxy would become more like Earth during our worst periods. Constant arms races, cold wars, the threat of violence always present. Yunseo turned to face Deho directly. "We chose isolation not because we are afraid of you. We chose it because we are afraid of what we might turn you into. The border is not a prison. It is a gift. We are giving the galaxy space to develop in its own way without our influence." "But you are part of the galaxy too," Deho said. "You have a right to participate, to contribute." "Maybe someday," Yunseo said, "when both sides are ready. When humans have learned more restraint and the galaxy has learned that strength is not always dangerous. Until then, we maintain the border. We trade at neutral stations. We help when asked and stay quiet when not. It is not perfect, but it works." Deho thought about everything he had seen during his visit. The beautiful cities and the hidden fortifications. The peaceful scientists and the prepared soldiers. The poetry about choosing restraint and the weapons that could destroy worlds. All of it was true. All of it was human. "What should I tell the council?" he asked. "Tell them what you saw. That human space is exactly what they fear and nothing like it at the same time. That we are dangerous neighbors who choose to be safe ones. That the border serves everyone's interests. And that perhaps in a few more centuries the galaxy might be ready for something different." When Deho returned to Vel Prime, he submitted a detailed report to the Border Services Division. He described what he had seen, the conversations he had, and his understanding of human philosophy. The report was immediately classified, read only by the highest levels of council leadership. But Deho also proposed something new. A gradual integration program, not to bring humans into the galactic community immediately, but to prepare both sides for eventual closer contact. Educational exchanges, scientific collaborations,